All right, there we go. All right, up. All right.
Hello, everybody. My name is Justin Lamonaco. I am one of the fundraising specialists for the Cradle of Liberty Council. We are joined tonight by Simon Gainey for our 2026 unit kickoff for the 2026 annual campaign for the family campaign. Simon is a volunteer with Troop 277 in Wallingford media area. He's the father of two scouts, and he's also the Maquis annual campaign chair as well for the last several years. So Simon's going to go through the campaign and how your unit can be the most successful it can be uh, during that time. So I will hand it over to Simon right now and to kick it off.
Thank you, Justin. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to just, we're going to talk a little bit about where we've come from in the last year. You've probably saw me last year talking about the family campaign, and then we're going to just reflect on what we need the units across the districts to help us do. And I'm also going to share you a very interesting example that's been brewing in my district, Minquis, to illustrate why we ask you to do what we do, because there's some interesting effects that come from doing it. And then at the very end, I'm just going to give you a very simple run through of a template to what making the ask really entails for the family campaign. And it's very simple. I promise it's very quick to do, and we're seeing results from units that do it. So that's my evening. I hope you can stay with it. If you'd like to do the next slide, Justin, that'd be great. So the first thing is, we should celebrate the support that we got in 2025. We're tracking post-pandemic levels pretty evenly, a little bit up, $238,000. And $238,000 goes a long way in our council. It helps to fund all sorts of things. And later on, I'm just going to highlight for you some of the things that it's actually funding so that you can reflect that to the people you're making the ask of. But thinking about that 238, it's a fraction of what the council uses to fund scouting in the area, but nevertheless very important, alongside things like popcorn and hikeathon. It's the pillar of our efforts. The thing that's really interesting no, can you just go back one? Sorry. The thing that's really interesting that's worth reflecting on is that we have a lot of the family campaign, which wraps in the Liberty donors, which give on a monthly basis. You can see that we're reliant on single donors as well as the Liberty donors that give typically month by month. And I think, can you go back 1 minute? Sorry, you're going too fast for me. If you think about that, the one thing that's really important to know is that a lot of the effort needs to come from the troop level. And I think that might be a bit down to how much we engage with council, and the districts. But 90% of what you see of that 238 comes from troops, with a smaller proportion coming from the packs. So the effect is really the same. We need more troops getting involved, but we also need way more packs finding creative ways to address the family campaign. Thank you. Next one. Keep going. The interesting thing that you've probably seen me talk about before is that in the pool of people that can donate, let's say our membership, only about 8% choose to give through Liberty or Family Campaign one-time donors. 8% is actually pretty low, right? And that really means that 8% of 8,800 registered Cubs and units, or 374 units, is not a lot of people contributing. But that's sort of a little bit of a small slice, because really what you're thinking about, it's those that scouting touches. It's Eagles, it's former scouts, it's parents, it's grandparents, it's supporters, it's friends, it's family. And so it's really a lot lower than 8% potential. And so our job really, and I'm hoping you can help us, is to push that number up. We've seen it steady at 8%, barely moving. But what would be good is to start to see that climb to the 10 or 15%. Because guess what? When you get to the 10, 15%, the numbers are really going to be much more healthier. And that means that our scouting in the council is going to be healthier. We'll be able to do all sorts of new and different things with that. I always like these catch questions because it's important. And here's darn consistent. What is the top giving 20 units across the council actually raised? And the numbers are almost identical in 23, 24, and 25. And I can hear you thinking, oh, it's 45. Thanks, Justin. So 45% of what we raise comes from 20 units. And if you think about that, put it in another context, that's 5% of the units that participate of our council give 45% of the total. And I like the analogy about people pulling on a rope, the rope being the family campaign. That means we've got a few strong 20 units pulling very heavily, and I think we could do with some more jumping on that rope. One of the measures we started off early on, because a lot of units get one or two or get consistent donors that are Liberty donors for many years, is take a cutoff and say, well, let's look at the number of units that get less than 5 donors, because 5 donors represent perhaps the internal inertia behind a troop, but doesn't represent the wider ask that we're hoping units can make. And what's interesting is when you look at that, 93% of our units, packs and troops, don't get any more, don't even get 5 donors. And of that, 50% get nothing, get no donors. So that you could see, if you're a math guy, that if you just could pull that number, get a few more in each district to pull on the rope, we could make a massive amount of difference. This isn't an 80-20 rule. This is a 793. And if we could just shift it slightly higher, we'd make an enormous difference to the funds available to do some very interesting things in the council wide. So the biggest challenge, guess what the biggest challenge is? It's the same as it was last year, and it really is true. The biggest challenge is for us as districts and as units to all hold hands together and say, actually, we're going to make an ask. We're going to press the button. We're going to make the ask and go out there and ask our membership, their friends, their associates, their grandparents, some of our alumni, if they would like to donate a small amount to help keep funding scouting in the council. And so if you as a unit leader, pack or troop, sat there thinking, well, I wonder how hard this is. Why should I do this? We've got all the resources, all the help to make this happen, and lots of now case examples where units have stepped up over the last, I guess, 3 or 4 years that I've been doing this, and finding it extremely easy to do, not very time consuming, and not very embarrassing to do, because it's all led around a simple process that I'm going to show you. I'd like to illustrate, and I don't look at the numbers. The numbers aren't that important. In Minquist, we started this program 4 or 5 years ago, and each year we've been trying to slowly add a unit and a unit and a unit. And so when I reflect back of those 4 or 5 years and look at the troop giving, because mostly that's where the activities come, we've now got 8 units that are giving at quite a high rate. And that's how we're able to raise. But the most interesting thing is that when they make the ask, they're getting typically about 40% of people responding with a give. So 40% of their collective audience, and I'm using their registered adults, registered youth and adults, registered youth, excuse me, as the basis, about 40% of those give. And once you get that sort of momentum year on year, what we find is it grows and you get an additional unit and an additional unit and an additional unit. And so now we're looking at 8 units delivering almost 90% of the total for the district, knowing that if we can bring on 2 or 3 more in the next year, we'll start to really get well and above the total. And over that 4 or 5 year period has probably been the hardest fundraising years post-pandemic. For many districts, they've seen a decline, steady decline. So the family campaign is not only about getting money to the council to support all of the districts and all the things that I'm going to share with you in a minute, but it's also about fighting the decay that can happen if you don't go and ask. And the last thing to mention about this slide is once you start, like I've been doing it with 277 for 4 years, it's actually gets easier and easier each year to bring it along. The first year is definitely the hardest. And so that's part of where we want to help people who are desperate or would love to get involved and do it with their units to see that, because the momentum starts to happen and people start fall in line. And once you can prove it and show it that it works, you'll bring along other units. I love using this expression because very often I get talk with people who said, well, I don't like asking for money. It's really embarrassing, just not my thing. You know, and I would say to the unit leader who's really important, right? It's either the scout master, the cub master, the committee chair, that really what we're asking you is just to ask, because there's probably a lot of people who are very willing to donate, see the value, see how their youth is enjoying the programs, getting to do new things, enjoying high adventure, you know, getting exposed to all these things. And probably they're just not getting asked. And by not asking, we're doing scouting in the council a disservice, because we're not really giving them a chance to show that they care about it. And the numbers I shared with you from Minquist really illustrate that. There's probably 100 donors there that were lost or missed out because we weren't making the ask. And imagine if that could happen consistently across every unit, every pack, every troop in every district. I think we'd see a different picture from that. So it's all about you asking. And you say, well, where does this money go to? I mean, the best way to think about this is it's multi-leveled, right? And it's not that it goes to any one thing. It's part of the big funding package that sorts many of things. Some of the most important things are the training facilities and advancement opportunities that you see. Some of these camps that we enjoy, we've just finished our Klondike this past weekend. That's helped by the family campaign. Like, if we're going to expand and try and recover net numbers back to where they were pre-pandemic, we're going to have to support the growth and development of scouting, particularly in underdeveloped districts and areas. That costs money and time and staff. Some of the systems, some of the trained professionals that we rely on to help out make our jobs as unit leaders easy, that's where the money goes. That's part of where the money goes. And then, importantly, because not all districts are the same, we're dealing with a very diverse population of different income and wealth and demographic levels. It's good that we can continue to develop scouting and subsidize scouting and camp in places that would never get an opportunity to enjoy that. I think that's a very scout-like thing to do. And if you know anything about other councils, some very close to us, part of this donation sequence that we go through each year with the family campaign, amongst other things, is that we're trying to avoid a council program fee that would hit us all. Every unit, every member would see that. And so I think I love the stated aim that we're going to do it through fundraising rather than just charge people and not make the effort. So every time you donate, think about what you're doing for the people who can't afford it, but also think about what it means to a unit that relies on the staff, the facilities, the training, and the development of scouting, frankly, to make it happen. I would say use this slide, use language like this when you're talking to your membership. I do. I perhaps condense it a little. But as a unit leader, excuse me, it's very easy then to talk about some of the things that make a difference to how you run a troop and how you access things for your troop. If it wasn't for muster and heart, what would we do? How would we ever be able to do that? If it wasn't for Resica, how could we have a world-class summer camp program available to us? We're very fortunate and lucky. Many other councils aren't as lucky as we are, but we have to fund it to keep it alive. Thank you. So we all like a big easy button, don't we? I'm particularly a big fan of easy. And so we've, over the last 4 or 5 years, pressed the easy button to activate. And it's simple, it's easy. I often ask some of the unit leaders that run it in Minquist how much time, and they might say, well, I might have spent 30 minutes this year on running this. So who hasn't got 30 minutes? You know, and the reality is it actually delivers dollars. But to me, the most important thing is that we're actually delivering donors, because donors, people showing up, show that we're asking, show that they're getting the message, and showing they're able to respond. Whether it's $10, $100, $1,000, to me, ultimately makes a difference to the total, but it's more important that we deliver on donors and the dollars will follow. And so that methodology, next slide, please, Justin, is all about picking your time. So everybody will tell you that when you ask for donations, it's not a good time to launch it on Thanksgiving Day, even a few weeks before Christmas, because the dollar's elsewhere. It's not a good time to ask start of school, because it's the chaos of getting our kids to school takes our attention away. Sometimes in the summer, it's hard to get attention because obviously people tend to refocus and spend their time traveling, enjoying family time. So figure out what time works for you. I've seen people do it in February, March, April's a very effective time. We've seen people do it May and June, just before everything wraps up before summer camp. And then we've also seen people do it sort of October time when school's over, but before the holidays come. But the thing is to decide what best for your unit, what's going to get attention from my members, and just go for it. There's no hard and fast. I would say from personal experience, it's important to do it quickly and straightforwardly, and to do it in a short period, have an end and know when to stop. Because the last thing you want to be is WHYY asking every 5 minutes all the time. For us, they'll get bored of you. It'll be repetitive. So make it novel, unique, but also know when to stop. We typically find that you have to ask multiple times. If you ask once, guess where that's going? You might not see it, you get ignored, you'll postpone. You ask twice, it might get raised a little higher. And so typically we found that at least 4 times, spaced within a week, tune the message as you go, ask through email. And so here's 7 steps to an effective campaign. I sound like something from a beauty advert, I know. Really, it's prepare your distribution list. The fundraising pages are all set up for you. They're now all fully available on Scouting, Philly, Donate, I think it is. And once you know really where your landing page is, you can start generating a fundraising email. And what typically you should be doing, ideally, is send it to your full unit, pack and troop, send it to your alumni, send it to friends of, and tune that message to be from the person who cares the most. It should be the unit leader, in my opinion. Send it once, twice, fine tune it. And then if you start to see donors in, you can send a 3rd message reflecting on what you've done, what you need people to do, and then a 4th or 5th message. We typically find by the time, because we're well trained in our unit, by the time we get to 4, we've squeezed the lemon, we've got a lot done. And the last email is just to say, hey, we've got $8,000. Thank you so much for your support. Just know this is going this way. You won't hear from me again for another 12 months. Sometimes you need to squeeze it a bit more. Sometimes you have to talk to people in person. not a lot. But really, all you're doing is giving people the opportunity to give electronically directly to the council. They can get it attributed to their unit and district. They can choose what level, and it gets counted as a donor. And that donor starts to show up. I think last year we had something like 40 donor responses from our program. Obviously, they've been well tuned to that. But if you can get 8, 10, 15 donors, then you're starting to get in the 30, 40, or 50% of your membership that are donating. And then we as a group in our unit just reflect on that. We reflect obviously on a district, on a council level, just to see what's working. But that simple method is really, it's that easy. It's about sending 4 or 5 personal messages about why it matters and where to go to donate. And I think you might be surprised what happens when they do it. And for a Brit to be talking about baseball is kind of weird. These really should be cricketers, shouldn't they? Although that wouldn't make any sense. But personal favorite movie of mine, like if you ask, they'll come. And that's really the essence of what we're asking for. Just ask, make it simple. Don't spend a lot of time on it. Make it from you, personal. Don't delegate it. And you'll be surprised how quickly it comes. And really the end game of this is it's helping to support the things that we take advantage of in the council that are so important to our functionality. And so I'd like to think that it's an easy approach to get that. I think with that, I'm going to close. Hopefully I've used my 20 minutes, and I think there's an opportunity for anybody if they want to ask questions. And again, you feel free that you can always reach out to any one of us. I'm always available, happy to help, happy to share and this journey on a district or unit level.
All right, Simon, thank you so much for that information. For any of the units that are wondering who your annual campaign chairs might be in your district, I'll reach out to your fundraising specialist. For me, for Service Area 2, it's Minquist, Baden Powell, and Constellation. In Service Area 3 is Mike Kraus, and in Service Area 1, Jonathan Fullenwellen. We can connect you to the right people who can help with that annual campaign questions. The other thing we want to make sure all of our units are doing is making sure we're submitting the form where we can set up your annual giving campaign page for your unit. There's a form out there. I believe it's on the scoutingphilly.org/give website. But if not, we'll send that out as well. And hopefully that will get done pretty quickly, and then we can get you guys activated. So I don't think we have any questions. I'm looking here. Any questions on there, Mike? Nope. I don't think there's any questions up there. So with that, I will end this for tonight.
So far, don't see any questions, but I did see one good thing too, that if you do have contact for your alumni,
That I will end this for tonight.
so far, don't see any questions, but I did see one good thing too, that if you do have contact.
Yeah, there's a couple of comments really good about contacting your alumni in your unit as well to get that rolling. So with that, we will end this for tonight. Any questions, please feel free to reach out. Again, thank you, Simon, for all the great information and work you put into this tonight as well. So we'll see you along the road. Nice, guys.